You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
All right, so we continue with the conversation that we started on the 702 open line this morning around the murder of Witness D. This is someone who testified at the Madlanga Commission. His name is Marius van der Merwe. We didn't know him as Marius van der Merwe until his murder, and this is someone who gave explosive testimony detailing how EMPD Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi and other officials had ordered him to dispose of the body of a suspect that was allegedly killed by EMPD and SAPS members, and he was told to dump the body in a dam. And that's what he told the commission he did because he was fearing for his own life. I mean, the way he explained how they even escorted him to go and dump that body in a dam, it's quite hectic. And the fact that he has shared a similar story with IPID, and we still don't have clarity as to whether anything was ever done with the information that was shared with IPID is actually quite shocking to us. So I've been asking you, if you do work that puts you at risk, when you read about such stories, what does that make you feel? I know in the past when we've had, in fact, after Mofolo, the former, the auditor from Ekurhuleni who was also murdered, assassinated. After that, I was asking some of you who are auditors, who are detectives, who are private investigators, who do work that puts you at risk as to how you manage. And a lot of you have indicated that, in fact, some of you have changed careers because you wanted to put your family first. You realized how that particular profession puts your life at risk. And when we're hearing stories of people being murdered simply for doing their job or for blowing the whistle on something, that's turning us into a lawless state. That's an attack on justice. It's an attack on the rule of law. And that's why I think all of us need to rally and ensure that we demand accountability and we help the police where we can to get to the bottom of this. Tebogo Khaas is the Chairperson of Public Interest South Africa, joining us on the line to talk about the issue of protecting, not these witnesses or whistleblowers. What do we need to do? Tebogo, thank you for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and thank you for having me.
I mean, it's so sad that it's almost every month you probably get booked for interviews now, or every second month to talk about someone who has been murdered, not because they are a terrible people who are doing crime, but because they dared, tell the truth, blow the whistle on something else. And that's raising a lot of questions about what country we're going to have if this is what criminals are going to do when they don't like what someone else is saying.
In fact, let me add on what you just said, Clement, and I think that is a very good encapsulation of the issue. Those who are actually fingered for wrongdoing get to be glorified before parliamentary committees and be called footmans and supposed role models for our youth. And it is a worrisome state of affairs that we find ourselves in. In fact, when history books are written about about crime, organized crime, and how our society was lost, this will certainly feature prominently because those who dare, speak out or expose wrongdoing are most likely to face retaliation than protection, as we've seen with what happened to Marius van der Merwe.
What consequences are we looking at here at Tebogo? Because we have spoken before. In fact, a lot of our conversations in the past, you'll see, were more about people who blow the whistle and they don't have a job afterwards. And they are untouchable because no company wants to work with you as much as the company embraces and celebrates. Even if they claim to celebrate, even whistleblowers, they've got mechanisms that protect them. There are companies that just don't want to touch you once you have blown the whistle and you are known. So that was sort of like the first issue that whistleblowers were facing, that we don't have livelihoods. And now we're getting to a point where it's no longer just about livelihoods. It's getting worse and worse that they are being murdered. What does this mean, not only for the rule of law, but for the truth itself? A lot of people are just going to be scared to speak out.
You know, the truth is, Clement, as you rightly put it, there's duplicity both in the private and public sector. We have captains of industry standing on podiums talking about ethics, governance, and you name it. They measure their ESGs. We talk about ethics, sustainability, and governance. And yet, if any of the employees dare speak about the wrongdoings in that company, they are rushed to actually protect what they say, their reputation, which might hit their bottom line and share prices. And yet, at the same time, that quantification flourishes. And whistleblowers themselves, as you've seen with especially the state capture era, most of those individuals, I'll mention a name, people like Tema Maseko, struggle to actually be even absorbed or get employed within the public sector, the private sector. Yet, from the same companies that elevate and speak about the nobility of what he has done, he is just an epitome of many other whistleblowers who today are struggling to make a livelihood only because their dead shine a light on doing.
So what do you think should be the approach of the commission when there's someone who comes to testify, a witness, and the witness says, I don't want security? Because in this case, we are told that the witness was offered security and he said he's fine because he owns a security company. And I wonder if the commission had to insist or persuade him to get that, because I would imagine that the commission has done sort of a threat assessment based on the information that he'd given them, and they realize the kind of risk that he is in. What should be the approach of the commission? Because I think this gives us an opportunity and gives the commission an opportunity to rethink the security arrangement so that when the next time someone also says, no, I'm good with security, they're able to approach it differently, knowing what the consequences could be.
Here's the deal, Clement. We all know that once you go into witness protection or you're invited to be in the system, your life changes completely. Your family, your social life gets to be changed. Never mind that, your livelihood, as well as the ability for you to eke out a living for your family. Now, if that is not adequately catered for, you are going to find it difficult for you to get into witness protection. And I suspect that is where Mr. van der Merwe found himself in, where he might have well said, yes, you give me protection, but what about this environment that I have to find myself having to let go of and to make a livelihood for me? Are you also going to, take care of my family, my business, or the people who rely on me for their livelihood? So there are shortcomings, and I don't think it would be so much unreasonable to expect them to give him the kind of profit that he may have deriving from his business. But the point is, there's a huge suspicion here, Clement. The people who do risk assessment, remember, they are policemen themselves. And here you are, you're talking about a witness who was fingering wrongdoing by police. Now you tell me, could there have been an influence upon those who are doing that risk assessment to not persist in making sure that he goes into the witness protection system, because it would benefit them if he refuses witness protection and he declines it, knowing they will know full well that he'd be exposed. And that is a suspicion that is valid, which we are not taking into confidence as to what is the extent to which he was tried to, he was offered protection. And until those questions are answered, remember, his operator was operating in an environment that is filled with violence, the zamazama, the illegal mining. We still have a kingpin, a so-called kingpin, who was let go of by the police. Is it in Stilfontein or wherever?
Stilfontein. He's still gone.
Even today, we still don't know it because he was assisted by police. We've heard that some police are going through disciplinary hearing. I wouldn't be surprised if they let go or nothing becomes of that. But the fact of the matter is that how do you trust the very same system that wants to protect you, the very same system that actually harms you or is likely to harm you? So we need to have a conversation. And I think the minister must look herself in the mirror and say, is that the kind of approach that a credible leader that she is, in my eye, would really want to be to be accepted as somebody who have got no regard of what we're dealing with here, the seriousness of this, and for her to be flippant and want to point the finger at the media for having been a reason why Mr. Van der Merwe is now demised.
So part of the issue here, I suppose, is the legislation, because as it stands now, can we say that whistleblowers are legally protected? And what do you, as Public Interest South Africa, propose as perhaps an overhaul of the whistleblower and witness protection? What do you think can work?
There is no protection at all. Forget. I'll deal with the issue of the legislation for now. Forget. And your point, Clement. One of the witnesses within the Madlanga Commission, I won't mention names, has faced retaliation by way of a civil suit running into millions and millions of rands, only because he went to the Madlanga and spoke the truth, and now he's been threatened with legal civil suit. And nobody, the commission cannot defend him. The commission is not mandated to provide legal protection for him. Where will government? What is government doing? Nothing. Now you, as a witness, you are not exposed to now having your life turned around because you went and told the truth. And after having done so, society and the government is of no use for you. You have to defend for yourself, to go and defend yourself. Now, talking about the issue of legislation, we've been advocating for legislation to be changed for years. We are grateful to hear that by end of this year, a bill will be ready. End of the year is only about 13 or 20 days or so left. We'll see if we see any bill coming out. We still believe that will be done. But even if we can have the best whistleblower, Protected Disclosure Act or whistleblowing legislation in place, enforcement becomes an issue. Implementation becomes an issue. We've got a government that is not well known for implementing its policies or the laws. So you can have the beautiful constitution, but the constitution means nothing if it doesn't mean that it vindicates people's basic rights as contained in the Bills of Rights. So yes, much as we're looking forward to this new legislation, the question is, how is it going to be implemented? How is the other parts, the other cogs that depend on it? You've got a criminal justice system that this new legislation will depend on. Is the criminal justice system fit for purpose? Will it be fit to make sure that it lives up to the spirit of whatever the new legislation says? Unless there's the kind of things that we hear at the Madlanga commissions that we sent to General Mkhwana's, we were not aware of. Unless those things are addressed and the rod is expunged, it's excised from the criminal justice system, including the NPA itself, we are on for a big thing.
Tebogo Khaas, thank you for speaking to us. He's the chairperson of Public Interest South Africa. Let's bring in Chad Thomas now, who is a crime expert and organized crime investigator at IRS Forensic Investigations. Chad, thank you so much for also joining this chat. Good morning.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and good morning to you and the listeners.
So when you have cases like this, where either someone is being killed because of the work that they do, within the, illegal mining, and there are people that are after them because they are sort of shutting down these illegal shafts, or they are getting murdered because they have revealed something or they were a witness at an inquiry, like, for instance, the Madlanga Commission. What are the consequences for our rule of law? Because this almost feels like an attack on justice, an attack on the rule of law. And the concern is this is going to turn us into a lawless state.
Yeah, it seems like that's where we're going towards. And it's a very sad indictment on where we find ourselves as a country. We've got so much going for us, yet it's the crime that has created the biggest problem. It's created a socio-economic problem. We have lack of investment from foreigners based on the fact that they're nervous to do business in this country because we're on a knife's edge. And in my particular space, when we started IRS Forensics 25 years ago, we were investigating complex financial crimes. Never in a million years did I imagine that all these years later we'd be on a watching brief for the Pena family for the assassination of Marumo Pena, for the Mafole family for the assassination of Mafole, for the Sofoka family for the assassination of DJ Somebody, and now looking into this murder of Marius van der Merwe. I thought with the ad hoc committee, with the establishment of the Madlanga Commission, with all the interest that the media has shown, and the media have been absolute stars in exposing the rot of corruption in this country, that the criminals would take a back seat to see how these commissions of inquiry play out, and perhaps instead of trying to do damage control, trying to find a way in which they could extricate themselves from this. And it seems to be the opposite. It seems that they now are going to actively go after people that they may believe could testify against them at a later stage.
So what do you think, what would be your advice for like a commission like the Madlanga Commission? How should they approach the issue of witness protection? Because what we are being told is that they did offer some protection for witness D, for Marius, and he said, well, he works in the security industry, he didn't need that. But what should be the approach? Because I would imagine you need to do a threat assessment so that you figure out what level of risk we're talking about here based on the information that is also being presented to the commission. Here's an opportunity to do things better in as far as witness protection is concerned, to avoid something similar happening to any of the witnesses who will still testify or have already testified. What would be your advice?
So we don't have to go to the extreme of witness protection programs, creating pseudo-identities, creating safe houses in different provinces. That's overkill. When we look at the budget for the police every year, only 2% of the budget goes towards the Hawks, which investigate priority crimes. But between 3.5% and 4% of the budget goes towards close protection and security services. So if they are able to protect politicians who aren't living in secrecy, but they have vehicles that are bulletproof, they have members who are trained who can look after them, then perhaps we need to look at something similar. Nobody really wants to go into a witness protection program in South Africa because their life is completely in turmoil. Everything is new. The families are affected. The businesses are affected. The friendships and the family relationships are affected. So we don't have to go to the extreme of witness protection. What we can do is introduce close protection measures like we see for mayors, like we see for ministers, MMCs, MECs. All of that, where we see overkill with these blue light brigades, can be utilized in the effective protection of whistleblowers, where you have somebody at their home doing static protection duties and you have them escorted to and from their testimony, and it depends on how long they would need that for. But it's so important that we show that we're serious about doing something before we cause a reluctance of witnesses to now come forward.
Sure, yeah, let's hope that's going to be what really assists us. And Chad, a lot of people are, of course, as we wrap up, because I said earlier that I don't think we are at the level of countries like, Mexico, and someone said, yeah, but what gives you the authority, Clement, to say that things are so bad on the ground? What's your assessment? You are a crime expert. You observe a lot of organized crime. Do you think we are there already? Or are we slightly getting there?
No. You know what? There was this whole capture narrative. We were never fully captured. Now there's this failed state, mafia state narrative. We're not. And we know we're close to that. When you look at the list that sadly we appear on because of the high rates of crime in South Africa, we're up there with countries like Haiti that haven't had an administration for a number of years now. We're there with countries like Afghanistan that have been at war for as long as living memory. So we're being compared to other jurisdictions that have multiple issues. Our main issue in South Africa is criminality, corruption, and a lack of will from the policing authorities or lack of resources and capacity. If we can fix crime, we can fix a lot in this country. Remember, we've just come out of a national election cycle. We're going into a local election cycle in 2026. If we were a failed state, we wouldn't have these commissions of inquiry. We wouldn't have a fierce and free media, and we wouldn't be able to elect people that are doing what they're doing as our representatives like we see within the ad hoc committee. So no, we're not a failed state and we're not a mafia state.
Got it. Thank you so much for making time for us. Chad Thomas, crime expert and organized crime investigator at IRS Forensic Investigations. That takes us to 10:30.